Hello, health warriors. I am so glad you joined me today on Eat, Drink, Live Longer. I'm your host, registered dietitian Liz Weiss, and today's topic is alcohol, beer, wine, and spirits, and how it impacts our health. The US Dietary Guidelines for Americans recommends limiting the consumption of alcoholic beverages. But what does that mean? What is considered moderate? And how much is too much? How do you even know how much you're drinking when, say, you go to a restaurant and your wine glass looks more like a goblet than a wine glass? Or maybe you're at a party, somebody offers you one of those cocktails in a can. They're very popular now. They go down quite quickly. I will confess to that. But how much alcohol is really in them? Do you even know? It can be very confusing. And what role can moderate alcohol consumption play on our health and our longevity? And when can alcohol sabotage it? Well, to answer all of those questions and to tell us about a new online calculator designed to take the guesswork out of figuring out how much alcohol we are drinking and to share some snazzy cocktail and mocktail ideas is fellow dietitian and friend Kathleen Zelman. So let me tell you a little bit about Kathleen. She is a food, nutrition, and media communications consultant. She's co-host of a new podcast called True Health Revealed. She is also owner of No Nonsense Nutrition. So Kathleen is the past director of nutrition. She was there for 17 years at WebMD. And I'm sure you have all been on WebMD at some point in your life. So wow, what an amazing portal. So she kind of helped to launch that. She's also received a lot of awards throughout her career, including the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics' very prestigious Lena Francis Cooper Memorial Award, in recognition of a distinguished career and remarkable contributions to the dietetics profession. Kathleen is a consultant as well for the Distilled Spirits Council, DISCUS for short. So she's well-versed on the subject of alcohol, and she's going to really help to kind of, communicate and tell us like, what is the true scoop on alcohol and how much is moderate versus kind of excessive. Before we bring Kathleen into the conversation, just a few friendly reminders to head to lizshealthytable.com/podcast, where you will find the show notes from today's show packed with important resources, including that standard drink calculator. I love a calculator. I'm also going to share a recipe on the show for a 0-proof pomegranate winter spiced cocktail. And I'm going to give you a link to that in the show notes as well. Okay, phew. That's quite the intro. Let's go ahead and welcome Kathleen into the conversation. Hey, Kathleen.
Hey, Liz. Thank you so much for having me and for that lovely introduction.
Well, it is so good to be here. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
So you hit the highlights. I'm excited about my new podcast, just launched in January with my co-host, Dr. Tom Rafai. And we are doing this on behalf of the True Health Initiative, the nonprofit organization that's trying to make sure we get the information and translate science for consumers and give you the facts based on evidence. But I've been in nutrition communications most of my life. Like you, we met back in the days of CNN. It's a pleasure.
Great. Yeah, I used to interview Kathleen because she was a spokesperson for the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics. So yeah, we go way back. Okay. And we've probably shared a few glasses of wine together as well.
Indeed.
Over the years. Alcohol plays quite a role in society. So, we can't demonize it. It's part of who we are. It's part of how we enjoy meals. I know for me, I love to, have a glass of wine. I'm kind of a rosé girl if I'm having dinner. I like a beer every now and again. So, it is part of who we are. How does alcohol fit into, say, your life, your lifestyle?
So I, like you, enjoy a glass of wine. I think dinner without wine sort of feels like there's something missing. But in my podcast on February 24th, we dropped an episode with Eric Grimm, who's a real expert, Harvard professor on alcohol. He said, it's okay to have that glass of wine, but take a day off now and again. So that's what I'm trying to do.
That sounds good. I like that. So let's talk about moderation. So we've got these dietary guidelines, and they actually tell us in those guidelines what is the definition of moderation. So let's get the conversation going with this sort of an explanation of what does moderation mean for men and women, And how does that translate into, say, beer, wine, and spirit?
Okay. Well, I think it's important to recognize that since the dietary guidelines started, that's back in 1980, alcohol has been part of the recommendations within moderation. So it's very important that people understand that it can be part of a healthy lifestyle. But if you drink too much, then the benefits are not going to be there. So moderate drinking, it's based on women. Recommendation for women is up to one drink per day. And for men, up to 2 drinks per day. Now, you might have genetics that don't allow that. You're not the average person, but for the average person, ladies remember 1, guys remember 2.
That's easy math. I can handle it.
You can do that.
So handle that math. So when you
Okay.
say 1 drink a day, does that mean that giant goblet of wine at the restaurant? Does it mean, one of those, I don't know, craft beers that's like loaded with alcohol? Like what, just translate the 1 up to 1 a day for women, up to 2 for men, in terms of like, what does that look like?
Okay. So that's where that standarddrinks.org will come in. So go to that website and you can see a calculator. But here's the basics. It is, for those of you who can see, it is 1.5 ounces of spirits, but that is 80 proof spirits. It's not, if you're buying 100 proof, it's going to be more than that. So stick with standard alcohol, and 1.5 ounces is considered 1 drink.
So let me ask you this. Let me just ask you this, Kathleen. And by the way, for people listening, Kathleen and I are also on Facebook doing this. If you don't want to just listen, you want to watch us, because Kathleen's going to do a show and tell. I'll give you a link to the Facebook recording. So you're saying with that standard drink, and we'll talk about that calculator in a minute, but standard drink, starting with spirits like gin and vodka and rum, let's say, it's 1.5 ounces. That's like a shot glass, right? Okay, that's considered the drink. And then, of course, you can use that in a cocktail. What about beer? What about wine?
Okay, so here's an example of a beer. I'm holding a 12-ounce bottle. Most bottles are 12 ounce. Most regular beers are 5% alcohol by volume. But when you start getting into the craft beers, the way they're making them, the alcohol goes up. So 1 standard drink is a 12-ounce regular beer, and it has to have by law what the percentage of alcohol is. So take a look and make sure it's 5 ounces. Now, I went into my refrigerator. 5% alcohol by volume. Right.
Okay.
So I went into my refrigerator to see what my husband had in the beer department. And here's a big one. This guy is a pint. This is 2 cups or 16 ounces. So we're not talking 16 ounces. This would be more than 1. This would be 1.5. 12 ounces regular beer is considered 1 standard drink. Now, when it comes to wine, the wine recommendation is for 5 ounces. And I have a little show and tell here for those who can see, but I have poured. I took my measuring cup and I marked off 5 ounces, because how else do you know in that goblet what 5 ounces is? And I poured it into here 4 different size wine glasses. And you see how it looks different in every one. And I have to laugh, because when I was doing this, getting ready for our show, my husband said, "Oh my gosh, I would think that I wasn't getting a good pour at a restaurant if it looked like that in one of these glasses, but not in the other." So 5 ounces of alcohol, that is roughly 12% alcohol by volume. And what each of these standard drinks has is the same amount of alcohol. So that's why it's 1.5 ounces of spirits, 12 ounces of regular beer, or 5 ounces of white, red, rosé champagne.
Interesting. Okay. So when you have a giant wine glass and you pour 5 ounces into it, we've all been in a restaurant, and then you complain to the waiter. You're like, "This is not a normal pour. Come on, give me some wine here." It's because you have this giant glass. So a good exercise at home is for people to do exactly what you did. And you could do it with, grape juice or whatever, but measure the 5 ounces, pour it into different glasses. And you're like, "Oh, that's what a standard drink of wine looks like." And that I think is important for people. A cool exercise, right?
Yeah, it really is. And also just a note on wine. So wine has 12% alcohol by volume, but some of them like Zinfandels and some different ones are much higher, 15, 16%. So take a look, start becoming aware of what you're drinking and what the alcohol content is.
Interesting. So, when you look at a spirit, the rum, the vodka, the gin, that's 40% by volume, meaning there's, you're going to drink a lot less in terms of the liquid amount, but you're getting more of a punch from it. So that's why you want to limit the amount.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. You're not going to have imagine the 12-ounce beer. This is why I actually like to drink beer, because it's like that beer is going to last a long time. So for me, who's a little sensitive to alcohol, if I have a beer through the night, it's going to last. And that's that one drink. Whereas if I had a mixed drink or even wine, it's easier for me to overdrink, with those types of beverages.
Very good point. And if you drink martinis, I mean, that's mostly alcohol. So, we'll talk about how you can stretch it, but keep in mind, all these standard drinks, they all have 0.6 grams of alcohol, but just know what the portion sizes are and to keep your eyes out for, if you love the craft beer, realize you might be getting, a drink and a half in just one 12-ounce beer.
Right. More concentrated. So let's say though, you're at a cookout or you're at a party and there's all these canned beverages now. You can get the canned cocktails. You can get the canned like wine spritzers. I know that when my boys come to visit us, the fridge always see like magically these cans appear. And I don't think they realize like how much alcohol is in them. So let's say you're at a party and you've got this can of a mixed drink of some sort. How do you know like how much you're drinking? Like, am I drinking the equivalent of one standard drink or two standard drinks? Tell us how to figure it out and tell us about this online calculator.
Okay. So show and tell. Here's an example. It's a 12-ounce can, which most of them that you're going to find in what we call ready to drink, the RTDs, the canned cocktails, most of them are 12 ounces. A lot of them use this tall, cylinder type approach, but they're 12 ounces. It should be 5%, just like a beer. So if you look on the label, it will tell you 5% by alcohol. But you can also get a different brand, and you'll find that in the same amount, you can have 8%. We saw one recently where it was the equivalent of 2 drinks. So it was a margarita in a can. And, this is not a funny story, but I was with someone who got sick because we were at a beach. It was outside. She drank it like she thought she was drinking a beer, but yet it's in the same volume. She had 2 drinks in the sun, probably a little dehydrated, and it didn't end well. So It's important that you, especially if you're outside, and these ready to drink cocktails, they're great for taking to the beach or on a picnic. But before you buy them, and certainly before you drink them, make sure you know going in how concentrated they are. And it's on the label. Sometimes you need your glasses or a magnifying glass because it's so small. But that information is on the label. Remember 5% alcohol by volume is what you want.
Interesting.
Drink.
So knowing that the beer has 5% alcohol by volume and it's a 12-ounce beer, you're saying when the can says 5% in that 12-ounce can, no, it's essentially like I'm drinking a beer. So even if there might be a spirit in there, it's still the equivalent. It's still similar. It equals 1 drink. So tell everybody about this calculator, because that for me, it's the math gets heavy. It's like I'm at a picnic. I need the calculator. I'm going to put the QR code to the calculator in the show notes, and people can actually just connect that way, which is kind of cool. And you can figure it out on your phone. But how does this calculator work?
Well, so that you go to standarddrinks.org, and there you can input what you're drinking, and it will tell you very quickly, very easily how many drink equivalents it is. So what we're always looking for is 1 standard drink, but then this will help you know if you're drinking more than 1. So they've done all the math, Liz. You don't have to do any of the work. And I'm really, part of the reason that I consult with and help communicate this information is because I'm so proud of the distilled spirits that they're in the business, but yet they advocate responsible drinking. And so that's why that calculator is there to help you, all these different tools to help you drink in moderation, because there's no beverage of moderation. It's only the practice of moderation.
So if you go into this calculator, into this tool, and you plug in, this is a 12 ounce, whatever, ready to drink cocktail. And on the label, it says it's 8% alcohol by volume, 8% ABV. Then it's going to spit out the number. It's going to say, you're having 1.5 glasses,
exactly.
The equivalent of 1.5 glasses. And yeah, I could see how it's so easy to really overconsume on those drinks.
It really is. It really is. It's so easy.
So the dietary guidelines are saying, for women limited to up to 1, for men up to 2. Would it be okay to say, okay, I had one drink? You know where I'm going with this. I had a glass of wine on Saturday. It's now Wednesday, and I'm going to have 5 glasses of wine because I've had nothing in between. Does it work that way?
Absolutely not. And it's because of how alcohol can get absorbed. I mean, if you drink too quickly or too many in a row, it's considered binge drinking. So you don't want to have 4 or 5 drinks in a 2-hour setting. That's binge drinking. So when you regulate it and modulate it, your body can handle it. It's also a good idea to always have it with food. Dr. Eric Grimm says that you should really not even start to drink your drink or your cocktail until you have some food in your belly. So, don't want to be on an empty stomach, and you can't save them up.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Sorry.
Right. Sorry, not sorry. Sorry.
Yeah.
So, I find with me personally, and I don't know if there's any rhyme or reason to this, if I have like a glass of rosé with dinner, I feel fine from it. If I have a glass of white wine, it goes right to my head. I don't know why. I think I'm a bit of a lightweight, but do you have any idea like why one type of alcohol would impact me versus another?
I really don't. I mean, I do know that in general, genetics plays a part, and some people just don't tolerate alcohol, but that would mean you weren't tolerating the rosé or the white wine. So I don't get that. I did learn from Dr. Rim that the bubbles, like the bubbles in champagne, help the alcohol go to your head faster. So that, when you have carbonation in a beverage, it adds to the rapid absorption. But
that makes sense. I'll tell you, if I've had like sparkling rosé, I'll even say when the waiter might come over, oh yeah, this is, excuse me, this is our rosé. It's a sparkling rosé. I'm like, oh no. Because I know that A, I'm going to drink it too quickly because it's so fun and effervescent, but B, it is going to go to my head too quickly.
Well, you're wise to know your limits, Liz. That's a really important thing to recognize. And if you find yourself flushing, your face getting red and you get flushed, that's your body giving you some signals about, you need to slow down, or maybe you're not tolerating the alcohol. So, be tuned in to how it makes you feel. That's a really important point.
So, we've been talking about moderate, right? Alcohol. We're going to use that calculator the next time, we're heading to a party. Yeah. So we know, don't overdo it. What are the health benefits or potential health benefits of drinking in moderation? Because I remember years ago when 60 Minutes, I don't know, people listening might remember, they did this segment on the French paradox, how the French eat all this rich food and they drink wine and they don't seem to have as high a rate of heart disease as Americans do. And it's probably like the most watched episode ever on 60 Minutes. So is there some truth to the French paradox? Like can moderate alcohol consumption, say that nightly glass of wine, protect us and boost our longevity, if you will? And then conversely, how can alcohol sabotage our health?
Well, it's a paradox, I think, because, the thing that is kind of confusing is that high saturated fat diet. But what we do know is that in moderation, that is, we've given it out, 1 for ladies, 2 for men, the standard drink, it can be cardioprotective. So there is a body of evidence that supports that alcohol can have health benefits, especially for your heart. But again, it's that fine line of making sure you don't overdo it. And if somebody is not a drinker, they shouldn't start drinking for those health benefits. You can get those health benefits by eating a healthy diet, by getting more exercise. There's all kinds of ways to try to promote your health. So French paradox, that one or two drinks, it has that cardioprotective benefit. But I think it's important to also note that it's not necessarily red wine. It's the alcohol. So whatever it is you choose, you're going to get those health benefits, whether it's spirits or beer or wine.
And what's in the alcohol that would potentially give us those benefits?
Well, it's just the epidemiological studies that have looked at people who drink, like the nurses' health study and the big cohorts of groups. They've determined that by drinking in moderation, you have this cardioprotection. So the precise action of the alcohol, I can't really explain, but there is a body of evidence that continues to support that moderate drinking is beneficial to your health.
And then what about people who drink too much then? Obviously, that can lead to a host of health problems.
Absolutely. Liver problems and accidents, falls. Especially as you get older, falling is a big consequence of people who drink too much. So we need to talk about those who shouldn't drink too, but it's, there are consequences of, binge drinking and all kinds of things are certainly not good for you, not recommended, and have no health benefits, have health consequences.
So who should not drink?
Anyone who's underage, women who are pregnant or who want to become pregnant, if you're driving, if you're operating heavy machinery, if you're on certain medications, certain conditions. So it's really wise to talk to your doctor about, am I a good candidate to enjoy moderate drinking? Because you might not be. You might have conditions that warrant you to basically not consume alcohol at all. So it's a good conversation with your physician.
So for me, who does want to limit to the one drink, and I don't drink every day because, it's just not something I do. But, I was thinking even through COVID, when we were sort of isolated, my husband and I would split a beer almost every night with dinner. We'd split it and this sounds weird, we'd put ice in it. I love a cold beverage. So I add ice to wine, not red wine, but to rosé. If I had white wine, I'd add ice. If I have a cocktail with a spirit, I always add for extra ice. So that's my way of making it nice and cold, but also extending it and making it last longer. That's like my number one personal strategy. But let's talk about how we can still enjoy that moderate alcohol, reap the potential health benefits, but make it last, because the evening is long.
Especially if you start early.
Yeah. So what are some tricks?
I love that tip of yours. I mean, I think adding more ice, asking for more ice is great. And I do the same thing with beer. I'm not really a beer drinker, but by the time I could finish a beer, it's hot. And so that ice keeps it cool, but it also has the dilution. One of my favorite tips is between cocktails. So especially if you're a guy and you get to have 2 cocktails, have a glass of water. Or before you even get started with drinks, whatever time, or, before dinner, or if you're going to have a cocktail at happy hour, make sure you're well hydrated. Make sure that you have a big glass of water before you even get started. And, don't forget to have a handful of nuts or something in your belly because you don't want to consume alcohol on an empty stomach.
What about other things like adding maybe more seltzer or adding some fruit juices? I mean, I do think calories, though, for some people can really add up. Like, how many calories would you get in that standard drink, the wine, the beer, the spirit? And then talk about how we can really get a lot of extra calories, especially with those mixed drinks. And I've seen them come out of machines and the sugar and, oh boy, that can add up.
Absolutely. So you want to try to, the average calories for the standard drinks, about 150, some a little less, some a little bit more, but roughly 150 calories. So when you mix, you want to make sure that the mixes that you use are low in calories. My favorite is a tall. I always ask for tall because then you get more of the seltzer and more ice. So I get a tall vodka soda with a splash of cranberry. So It's pretty, it's pink, it's got a lot of ice, it's got a lot of club soda, and it only has one shot. So it lasts for a long time. I would also say don't drink it with a straw. My story about my friend who got sick, she was drinking that canned cocktail with a straw because a straw somehow or another makes you drink it faster. But even in the canned cocktails, I'm going to show you this one. Now, this one is a standard 5%. It's only 100 calories. So they use a lot of seltzer to dilute it. So it's not too high in calories. You want to make sure that things like pina coladas, oh my gosh, the number of calories in there. So think about, 100% fruit juices or sparkling water or things that don't have a lot of sugar in it as your mixers. And, I think anytime there's a little umbrella in it, you're in trouble. There's a lot of calories in that drink. For a treat, of course, now and again, but calories add up. And, we're so calorie conscious that we don't need to be adding extra calories with our alcohol. We need to keep it simple.
I love that. The umbrella is the red flag. Step away from the cocktail. Oh my gosh, that is so funny. So you mentioned this cocktail that you like with seltzer, a splash of cranberry, any other cocktails that you enjoy that really kind of, last the evening?
Yes. So that cocktail, I also put a wedge of lime in it. My latest favorite is the Aperol Spritz. So that is a serving of Prosecco over ice. Again, lots of ice and, a splash of Aperol with a wedge of lime. So I like to just stretch the drinks. I'll take one of these 100 calorie canned drinks and I'll pour this over ice as well. Oops, sorry. I'll pour this over ice. So I think ice is your friend. Ice helps you stretch. And anything with club soda, because club soda has no calories. So club soda or a flavored sparkling water, those are great mixes. And then how about some fresh fruit, like a wedge of orange, which I put in my Aperol Spritz, or the lime or lemon, so use some citrus. A pomegranate seeds are a beautiful addition, that kind of help make things look pretty. But ice, tall glasses and no straws are what's going to help you get through the night and sip it, and sip slow. Like when I'm drinking my wine, I take baby sips because I want that glass. I need that glass to last through my dinner.
And it is a problem when you're in a restaurant and the waiter comes by and just keeps topping off the glass. That's a toughie. That's a tough one.
Yeah, really is. You lose control. So you might just say, put your hand over the glass, which is what we usually do, that we'll finish it. So we know we've had one glass. And if you want more, you're a guy, you can have your second glass, but you keep adding a little and a little. And that 5 ounces, it doesn't look like much. I'm going to show you here in a big goblet. This is what 5 ounces looks like.
Hey, I need more. There's not enough in there.
Well, you might think you're not getting a very good pour, but that's 5 ounces. So the only way you're going to know that is when you do it at home and you start, modulating your intake so that it's reflective of one standard drink.
I love this exercise. I am so going to do that because oh my gosh, it's just very, very hard to gauge that. The other thing that's really become popular is dry January and sober curious people. So for people who are doing the dry January or just say, I'm going to take a break from alcohol, and, some people need to do that. Let's talk 0 proof cocktails or mocktails. I'm going to share one. I teased it at the beginning of the show. So basically you take a little saucepan and you add, this is like a really warming winter drink, and you add about a cup of 100% pomegranate juice. So there's no added sugar in that. And the pomegranate juice in and of itself is packed with antioxidants. It's so nutritious. And then you add about a half a cup of 100% orange juice. And to that, you then add some cloves, star anise, and a cinnamon stick. And you just kind of let that bubble for about 15 minutes, just simmer, and then let it cool. And then I like to take, like you said, a tall glass. And the prettier the glass, the better, right? Something festive. Fill it with ice, and then pour that beverage over it. You could probably get easily two people can, this serves two You can then garnish with some orange slices, or a wedge of orange would be really pretty in that. You could add a little mint if you choose to, but it's this warming, wintry kind of beverage. You could add some alcohol to it and make it a cocktail, or just make it that zero proof or that mocktail. And I love it. You could drink it warm or drink it over ice. It is so refreshing. And I've served this at parties before where some of your guests don't want to drink alcohol.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a nice mocktail. Very
And you know
simple.
what you could do? Yeah, very simple. You know what else you could do if you're drinking it cold? You could even top that off with sparkling water. You could stretch it even more.
I love that. I love that. And also for people who are counting calories and think, oh, I don't want to drink all that juice. Although, it's not like above and beyond, but for people who want to stretch it even further and maybe get 4 drinks out of that, 4 cocktails or mocktails. Yeah. Add some of that sparkling water. I love that idea.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many, the bartenders are so creative. They're doing all kinds of wonderful things with flavors and ginger and syrups that, you can just withhold the alcohol and still get a fancy cocktail, or more accurately known as a mocktail.
Is there anything you make at home that you like that's sort of in that mocktail world?
I don't. I do that. I'm not much of a cocktail drinker. I like that glass of wine with dinner, so I don't really play around, but I do like that my tall vodka soda. That's my drink if I go to a bar. So I don't play around in the kitchen, but I'm always amazed at what bartenders come up with. It's just, I save my one and only for a glass of wine. I love a glass of red wine. That's my favorite.
And it's so funny with red wine. So I used to be a red wine drinker, and I did share with you that I am a lightweight. And so lately it's just like either beer or rosé, and I can do a cocktail as well. So maybe as I've gotten older, maybe my body has changed. I don't know. The red wine just like, ooh, it's a little much for me.
And some people get headaches, like you have to find what works for you. And, as long as you're practicing moderation, you can choose whatever you like that makes you feel good, and you don't get the flushes or the lightheadedness or, feeling like you could fall.
And the headache too. That's not a good thing.
Yes.
I want to kind of wrap things up with the blue zones. I've done the podcast on it before. Yeah. So the blue zones are these longevity hotspots around the world where people live longest, and they live not just long, but they live better. They're healthy. And in the blue zones, there's these sort of common denominators, these lifestyle denominators that people have in common, because the blue zones are in various places in the world. And one of the common denominators is moderate alcohol consumption. This wine at 5, they call it. And meaning you have that glass of wine with your friends, and you're having it with snacks, and it's like a little happy hour kind of thing. So it's interesting when you look at that, like this longevity behavior, just to kind of get back to what you were saying about the cardioprotective benefits of alcohol or wine. But does that surprise you when you hear about the blue zones and this common denominator of moderate alcohol consumption?
Not at all, because there have been numerous papers that have shown lifestyle. So lifestyle being you're at a healthy weight, that you eat a plant forward kind of diet or flexitarian type diet, that you don't smoke, and you enjoy alcohol in moderation is the formula for, a long, healthy life, which is what the blue zones have shown. So all except for the Adventists, they were the only ones that are identified as a blue zone that don't consume alcohol. But again, it was the 1 to 2 drinks, moderation, and no, not saving it up and drinking 7 on Saturday.
So wine at 5, but not 7 on Saturday.
No.
So I've learned so much from you today that my big takeaway is stop using the straw. And who knew? Like, I like the straw because I can stir, I can stir in the ice, but I hear you. It's easy to overdrink with that straw.
Right. You can slow it down. I mean, if you're trying to stretch that one drink, you need all the tips you can get.
I like that tip. So we said at the top of the show that you are working with the distilled. Now I'm forgetting what the acronym, DISCUS. Tell us about DISCUS. Give us the website and tell us what resources we can find on their website.
So the Distilled Spirits organization has a website that they just launched called standarddrinks.org. And it's got the calculator there. It's got all these descriptions of what a standard drink is, how to measure it, how to look for it, explanations about alcohol. And like I said earlier, I'm helping them to communicate these messages because this is responsible drinking. And that's really what we want to advocate is that people, they don't drink and drive. That thank goodness for, services like Uber that can get you where you need to go. So you can be responsible about it because even 2 drinks might make you not safe to drive for the guys. And they've just done an amazing job at trying to educate the public and work with the dietary guidelines and uphold and support the dietary guidelines. So that's our Bible in our nutrition world. We trust the scientists that every 5 years look at the data and say it continues to be a recommendation if you do it right.
Fantastic. Anything else, Kathleen, you want to share about alcohol that we haven't touched on today?
I think the message is loud and clear that, there are health benefits. You shouldn't start if you don't, that it's a lifestyle. It's not just alcohol. Alcohol in combination with a healthy lifestyle is an important predictor of your health and the health benefits that you can glean from that moderate drinking.
Great. Well, thank you. I have learned a lot. I'm definitely going to use that calculator. So thank you, Kathleen, for joining us today.
My pleasure.
And for all of you listening, you must head to the show notes because it's going to be jam-packed, not just with that mocktail recipe I shared, but resources that you can use to drink more responsibly. The big aha moment for me has really been these canned drinks, which, like I said, suddenly appear in my refrigerator every time my boys are visiting. And just knowing a little bit more about how to calculate the amount of, is that can a standard drink or is it 2 standard drinks? And this is important information. Let the calculator do the work for you. If you love the show, post a review on iTunes or Stitcher Radio, wherever you get your podcasts. Tell a friend about it. And, as always, I'm so glad you joined me today. And thank you for listening to Eat, Drink, Live Longer.